Well, folks, it seems like once again we have yet another Sony spider failure on our hands, so let's talk about that. Hi y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. The next Spider-Man fail on the chopping block seems to be none other than SheHulk Spider Society, and boy does this sound like it's in trouble. This is yet another failure in Sony's long string of using spider-esque characters, but never actually including the Spider-Man. This one would focus on SheHulk, otherwise known as Cindy Moon, who is actually one of the more interesting spider characters if you ask me, so honestly, I'm kind of bummed to hear why this is happening, so let's talk about it. SheHulk Spider Society has essentially been in development for months, like since before the Writers Guild strike. They were supposed to come back to work on it in January of 2024 once the strike was up, and that never happened. Despite the fact that the show is supposed to be in active development, all the writers that were supposed to be working on the show were literally just released and encouraged to go pursue new work while they await coming back to work on Spider Society. So essentially, all the writers were let go, but the show's development is just on pause. Yeah, I don't buy it. We've talked on this channel about how the delayed indefinitely undergoing a pause, that usually means this project is never gonna fucking see the light of day. And that's the vibe that I'm getting from SheHulk Spider Society in more than a few ways. Supposedly, before the strike even happened, they already had quite a few episodes of the series written out, and apparently that all is going down the toilet. Recently, it came out that they were going to take a pause on the show and essentially refocus themselves for a more male-skewed audience. We're gonna talk about what exactly I think that means in just a minute, but let's talk about SheHulk. Part of me honestly would be really bummed if this show didn't happen, right? I think Cindy Moon is a really interesting character, and it would be cool to see this character brought to life in live action. On another hand, the showrunner is Angela Kang, and she supposedly is still attached to the project. Angela Kang was actually the showrunner on The Walking Dead and also the Daryl Dixon spin-off of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was good for like 5 seasons before it became an endless cycle of beating a dead horse and then a bunch of different spin-offs that I had no interest in. The point is that The Walking Dead is a wildly successful show, so if we had somebody like Angela Kang behind a show like SheHulk Spider Society, it sounds like it would be pretty good, especially considering that Cindy Moon does have a lot of potential to be a really interesting character for a spin-off series. On top of the fact that she's not a rando villain like Madam Web or Morbius, the issue here is that the news of this pause came right after the release of Madam Web, and that's why I think SheHulk Spider Society is already dead in the water. Madam Web is a Sony movie with in association with Marvel thing, right? It is still a movie with a Marvel logo on it, and it is the first movie with a Marvel logo on it to be released in almost 10 years that did not open at #1 in the box office. That is how bad Madam Web is flopping. If that doesn't sound bad enough, let's put the box office into context. In its opening weekend, Madam Web made $17.6 million, which is literally less than half than the $39.1 million that Morbius brought in. Madam Web has literally bombed harder than Morbius, and it had Sydney Sweeney in it. I mean, come on. So after that, if I were Sony, I would not be doing any more of these Spider-Man spin-offs ever again unless I just really liked losing money. Now let's do what I said we were gonna do earlier and talk about that refocusing for a male-skewed audience thing. See, people in Hollywood are always eager to blame the failure of female-led superhero movies on misogynistic audiences, right? Madam Web, The Marvels, a series like She-Hulk, all of that obviously failed because people are misogynist, because we just hate women and there's so many men that don't want to see women in female-led superhero movies, right? Because it's really easy for Hollywood to completely ignore the massive success of Wonder Woman in 2017, which raked in over $100 million in its opening weekend. It's obvious society just doesn't want to see women succeed, right? Movies like Madam Web and The Marvels, they're not bombing because people hate women and don't want to see female-led superhero movies. They're failing because They all have similar issues. I mean, nobody walked out of the Marvels or Madam Web, nobody complained about She-Hulk and said there weren't enough gratuitous boob or ass shots. I mean, that to me would be a male-skewed complaint, right? Nobody said that. Everybody just said, hey, these movies are poorly done. The CGI looks unfinished. The scripts are garbage. The movies themselves are unimaginative and lackluster. So instead of blaming it on misogyny, instead of blaming the potential failure and the pause for Silk Spider Society, instead of blaming it on the fact that we need to rewrite this for men, how about you just rewrite it for audiences that have taste? I'm sorry, but we cannot keep accepting the excuse that it's the gender and culture wars that keep leading to these movies failing. The fact of the matter is that the quality is no longer there, and the audience is responding. Eventually, Hollywood is going to have to stop blaming men and white people for the failures of everything they put out, and they're gonna have to accept, gee, I think we've been writing garbage, let's take a step back if we all want to make some money and we want to make some movies that people enjoy. That is what's gonna have to happen for Silk Spider Society. Instead of complaining that they need to rewrite it for men, I don't even know what that means. What they need to do is rewrite it for people that want to watch a good show. And then maybe, just maybe, people might actually tune in. Of course, that is if the show ever meets the light of day. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, my content creation, and this channel, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot content. I will add links to both of those in the description below. And let me know your thoughts about the death of Silk Spider Society in the comments below.